Welcome to Be Advised, Leading with Value with Brad Swineheart. In this podcast, we will focus on successful marketing methods for advisors that generate prospects and clients. We will learn from the best in the industry on how advisors in the trenches today are growing their practices. Join us for this journey where Brad draws from years of expertise and guest experts to help advisors reach their full potential.
This podcast is brought to you by White Glove's Podcast Connect program, a done-for-you, fully integrated podcasting system that will help you keep in touch with all of your leads.
Listening is a vital skill for success. In this episode of Be Advised, Leading with Value, host Brad Swineheart is listening to Julie Littlechild, the founder and CEO of Absolute Engagement. Client needs and expectations are constantly evolving, and Julie's firm helps financial advisors drive engagement and growth with input and feedback from those clients. Brad's guest can address how to uncover unmet client needs and actively engage with clients to increase referrals.
Julie, thanks so much for being on the show today. I have a million questions and I can't wait to dive into it.
Well, let's start with the first one. That's always a good place to start.
Always start with number one, right? So let's just talk about how you guys focus on getting input from clients and what that actually means to drive engagement.
Sure. There are many different ways to gather input from clients. So I tend to put them all under the bigger umbrella of voice of the client, right? Having a strategy in place that ensures that the voice of the client is actually driving the engagement and growth strategies in a business. So then if we took that down a level to say, well, what are the components of that? To some extent, they differ depending on the objectives of the advisor, but that might be surveys, it might be ongoing polling, it might be advisory boards or focus groups. There are a number of different ways. We tend to focus on point in time or ongoing feedback or input from clients that's more quantitative in nature. And then we help advisors to really use that actively to change the kinds of conversations that they're having with clients, to uncover opportunities and really capitalize on those using a lot of different ways.
So when you start developing the voice of the client, how do you input that into your strategy as an advisor?
So, it depends a little on the objective of the advisor. And so, for example, if we're talking to an advisor who, and often this is the case right now, is saying, things have changed. Surprise, surprise, over the last little while.
They have?
Yeah, I know. This is announcement. Things have changed, but because they've changed, what does that mean for my client experience? Do I need to deliver differently? Do I need to evolve that? Do I need to focus in different areas? So that if that's the objective, that would take us down the path of inviting input from clients on some fundamentals, like how often do you want to meet in the next year? How do you want to meet? How do you want to digest content? But we'd also go deeper on things like, what are your big concerns right now? Where are you challenged? What are the things that you're interested in learning about? Because having that information is so powerful if we can connect the dots then to what kind of events they're going to run, what sort of topics do they want to communicate on. If they're doing social media, how should they focus that? It gives us all of those kinds of input. Now if they said, I think I've got a really good handle on the experience, but I feel like there is untapped potential in my business, and they'd be right, then we would probably be asking questions around unmet needs. Are clients interested in learning about estate planning or transferring to the next generation, or insurance and protection, legacy? So just by asking these questions in a refined way, what we're doing is really teasing out specific opportunities to have direct conversations with clients about their needs.
And how do we ask those questions? Is this something that we coach advisors to do in person, on the phone? Is it an email? Is it a survey? How how do you pull that information out? Because I agree, if you can understand your clients or even your prospects'
Hmm.
concerns, I mean, that's gold right there.
Yeah.
Absolute gold.
Yeah. And I really like the approach of inviting input through a survey or poll and then using that as a prelude to a deeper conversation. So rather than just asking directly, it gives people time to think. I think you can pull out deeper information. So I'll give you two examples. Many advisors are implementing a process of, an annual or perhaps biannual survey, right? Where we're just saying, look, I want to ensure that we're doing everything that we can to deliver what you need. And here's a set of questions that would really help us to do that. Increasingly, though, I would say, and this has emerged a lot over the last year, is we're encouraging advisors to implement more of an ongoing process. Because if you think about it, some of the questions that can be very powerful are around, how are clients feeling right now? Are they feeling secure? Are they feeling uncertain? What are their needs right now? What are they interested in right now? Right? I mean, it's different for so many of us how we're feeling right now compared to 6 months ago and probably 6 months from now. And so we've actually implemented a whole process that puts the tools in the hands of advisors to ask a set of questions, a very small set of questions, in advance of a review via a poll that then gets integrated right into the meeting agenda. So they're effectively co-creating the meeting agenda with their clients based on what matters to the client in the moment. So that's just two examples, kind of that point in time singular survey versus ongoing input.
And that makes perfect sense to me because if I was given a survey in February 2020 of
Hmm.
anything, and I said, oh, you know what, I'm totally fine meeting with my advisor once a year, and let's do it at the end of the year, no
Yep.
big deal. And I submitted that survey, right? And
Yeah.
then okay, then March happens.
Right.
My my outlook is
Might have
obviously going to
changed.
change, right? Yeah, go ahead because I think
Yeah,
it's just important to have ongoing feedback.
that's right. And I think that what became really apparent to me and to the team at Absolute Engagement over the last year is that the whole client experience is not just this monolithic thing. It's driven by different aspects and different needs, human needs, that are more or less fluid. So what I mean by that is there's certain elements of needs that are relatively consistent, right? Like I want to work with an advisor I trust. I want to work with an advisor who has certain credentials. I want to work with an advisor who provides comprehensive financial planning versus just investment management. Like whatever those things are, that's probably not changing a lot. So it's relatively consistent, and that really drives the offer, the core offer. There are things that change sometimes. This year we're all suddenly very interested in staying healthy at home and managing stress and whatnot, so it doesn't mean that'll change tomorrow, but it might be worth understanding every 3 to 6 months if my interests have changed, because that's going to drive your communication strategy. But there are things that change sometimes daily or hourly if you're in our household, and that's feelings, right? So as you're about to meet with a client, that's when I think it's really important to have that read on, how are they feeling right now, because that's all that matters for this conversation, not how are they feeling next week or last month. So it's, that feels kind of complex, but it does bring us down to this idea that we need a cadence of asking the right questions at the right time and using that information to inform the right things in our business.
This podcast is brought to you by White Glove's Podcast Connect program, a done-for-you, fully integrated podcasting system that will help you keep in touch with all of your leads.
There has to be I know there's always new opportunities, but there has to
Yep.
be new opportunities now that have emerged just in the fact that, 2 years ago, primarily clients were, snail mail, phone calls
Yeah.
in office. Now those same people are very comfortable on Zoom. They're very comfortable on social media. There's more social media channels out there for people to explore. What are some of those opportunities that you guys have seen that have emerged for advisors to get this valuable feedback on a regular basis?
Right. Well, according to my son, it's TikTok, but I'm not sure I'm buying into that just yet. The the answer to everything is TikTok.
There's some great life hacks on there, right? Like I saw a
Well,
tip.
there are. I hear about them
I
daily.
saw this morning how you can make cotton candy in your blender, and I
See,
thought, well,
that
that's
is an
kind of neat.
important life skill,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, we've definitely seen some shifts because how could we not have? So when we're looking at the client input that we're seeing, yeah, clear shift toward wanting some more frequent contact right now. I think that'll change, but at least right now, preferring sometimes the Zoom meetings, as you say. So we're seeing a shift where often about half of clients in a given survey will say, even when we can go back to face, I'm pretty good with this. And you mentioned social media. You know what? We're seeing this small but mighty shift toward clients saying, look, I'm connecting in different ways, and so why wouldn't I want to connect with my advisor that way as well? So I think all of this is changing how we communicate, and I'm really interested to see where this goes. And you guys would know more about this than I, but for the last year we've been playing catch up, right? Oh, okay, I figured out Zoom. I've figured out that background. I've figured out how to get wired instead of being wireless, all these just basic fundamental things. But now I think the question is, what's great going to look like going forward, and which are the advisors that are going to say, I'm going to embrace this and I'm not just going to try to play catch up. I'm going to try to lead in these areas. I think that'll be really interesting to see.
So let's talk a little bit too. Outside of TikTok, where we all get our new news information and all of that. Are there any trends that your advisors are seeing? Is there something that's like a universal truth when it comes to surveying your clients, when it comes to grabbing this all important data? Are there things that are, 98% of the time, this is the feedback?
Mm. I'd say there are universal truths around categories of things. What I mean is that we are clearly seeing a shift. For example, let's take client communications as an example. We have, through the research, seen a really clear shift toward interest in things that are also non-financial, right? So yes, I'm interested in the education that you can give me around investments or the markets or estate or what have you. But right now, what I'm thinking about is stress or health or family or legacy or what have you. So I think the universal truth to me in all of this is that we need to personalize the communications that we send, that we need to be able to draw a line between what my clients have told me they're interested in and the kinds of communications and content that I share. And so, you could argue that it's the topic isn't the thing, it's the connection between what your clients told you matters and the content that's the thing. And so, this idea of personalization, I think the idea of creating more community among clients is an enduring trend and truth that we need to look at. The idea that our communications need to veer toward the aspirational, because that's what we need right now more than anything, is an enduring truth. And so all of these relate more to the kinds of communication, on the interest in legacy and insurance and estate and family and multi-gen, in the changes in how we're thinking about our financial futures. I mean, all of this we see time and time again. And for advisors, I think it's just a matter of saying, I just need to ask the right questions. I need to ask the right questions. I need to have a way to capture that insight from my clients and then a way to address those changes. To me, that's what client experience is all about right now.
And you said a couple of things there that I really want to latch onto and get a little bit more details on. And One is the same thing that we stress all the time because we run a nurturing platform for prospects,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I'm constantly telling advisors is quit telling your prospects what you want to say and
Yes.
tell them what they're interested in. And
Yes.
the point is to stay top of mind. The point is to have communication. The point is not to, if you're a Medicare specialist, it's not to 32 days a month push Medicare articles at them.
Right.
That's not the point.
Yes.
And you kind of hit that nail right on the head with saying, let's listen to what they want to hear, what they want to read, and it's not always going to be what you want to talk about.
It's
And
not. Often
that's
isn't.
okay, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be okay, right?
Yeah. It's got to be okay. It's tempting to say, well, so I've heard through my survey that my clients are interested in health and wellness, therefore I thought you'd find this market update of real interest, right? There's a disconnect. But the other, I mentioned personalization, and I think that's even a next step kind of thing, because I could say, let's assume I've surveyed my clients and 63% of them have told me that health and wellness is top of mind. So I begin to focus on that. I say, well, two-thirds of my clients said that health and wellness is the thing. So I thought you might find this of interest. Well, if you're not in the two-thirds, you actually couldn't care less what the other people think is of interest, right? So,
Right.
I guess that's where this idea of sort of tech-enabled personalization of content, I think, is becoming possible now. Like, as I couldn't have said that a few years ago, because if you were a single advisor with a small team, you said, are you kidding me? Like, how am I going to manage that? But the tools that are available now, I think, starts to make that possible. Are you seeing that as well?
Oh, it's 100%
Yeah.
possible. That's in our Social Connect platform. You can actually dive into what a client or prospects read,
Hmm.
and then it pops up, send them this article because it's
Right.
similar.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm going to send the general communication of this is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
You can absolutely just click a button and it says, hey, you read something like this, here's something else of interest, and that's so
Exactly.
personalized. And you don't need to do that every day or week or month, but doing that a couple of times a year, like,
Yep.
hey, I saw this article, I thought of you, I know you read something recently that was similar. How great would that be for your top prospect to get an article like that from you?
It would be. And imagine if we should do this, by the way, because I'm about to say it. We could say, well, here are the things that Mary said she was interested in on the survey you just did, and then be able to connect that to the work that you guys are doing. And now it's another level of input, right? On the
I love
behaviors.
that.
Yeah. I think there's, really, we're just talking about tagging people. Now, there's also the direct conversation, right? When we're talking about broad-based communication, but I think it's all important. So if I know that Mary is really focused on next gen and ensuring her kids grow up as financially independent human beings, if I ask a series of questions on a survey, I'm going to tease out that opportunity. I'm going to tease out what she's really worried about, like what's getting in the way. That's going to allow me to have a deeper conversation the next time that Mary comes in. And it's going to allow me to then send relevant information throughout the year on that. And now that's a real win.
I love that. And something recently that's just stuck directly in my brain is when advisors are talking to prospects or clients to focus on that destination, focus on that beach in Mexico. Don't sit there and tell them about the engine in the plane. Like
Right.
that's yes, your job is the vehicle, right? But
Yeah.
their passion is the destination. And that's what advisors need to focus on. And I think using that input, like you're saying,
Right.
helps understand what that destination will be. When they say health and wellness, that might mean something completely different to them than it means to you.
And that's the aspirational piece of it. And I've really seen a shift toward that. I think we all know that our messaging, seems to fall into the two camps, right? People either run from something or towards something. And there's research on both sides. But it feels to me that demonstrating leadership with clients and being inspirational for them, right? That's powerful, right? That's the kind of stuff that you don't leave someone who is an inspiration to you in achieving your goals. you might leave someone who's telling you how to restructure your portfolio in one way or the other because you're hearing a different message from someone else.
Right. And it's so funny because you talk to more and more advisors, and they always will admit that this is a relationship business, that I want
Yes.
stronger relationships with my clients. I want them to feel like we have a personal connection.
Hmm.
And then you say, well, that's great. What kind of content are you sharing? Oh, well, market updates and
Right,
I'm
right.
pushing medical. It's like, well, you're not, why aren't you correlating the two? Your
Yeah.
communication strategy to your clients and prospects needs to have that personal approach. Otherwise, you're missing that gold that's sitting in that CRM collecting dust.
It is. And I've, in some conversations that I've had lately on this, I think one of the things that's emerging is, well, I'm not an expert in those things. Why? That's not what my clients expect to receive from me. And I get that's a legitimate fear, but I think that if we can just get past this idea that if we share content, it means we have to be an expert in it. It's just that we're facilitating great content based on the needs of our clients, and that's still a great leader. So maybe just getting a little comfortable with that idea for some advisors is part of the issue.
I think that it's just as important to be able to provide information and a solution as it is to be able to do that solution yourself.
Hmm.
If you can be that conduit where they know they can come to you with any question and you're going to
Right.
find them the answer, that's
Hmm.
more important than having the answer immediately and being able to say, "Yep, this is what it is. I'm an expert at that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Information is free. Everyone carries around all the information they need in their pocket every single day.
Yeah.
It's the application of that information, it's the knowledge behind it and the ability to make that difference using that information that people are so desperate to understand and to have a reliable resource. And I would say most prospects or clients want one person to do that with. They don't want
Hmm.
to reach out to, six different professionals to get their answers on
Yeah.
whatever question they happen to have. They want
Yes.
that one go-to source, even if that source then goes to those other five professionals. They
Yes.
don't they don't care about where the solution originates. They just want to know that they have that dedicated person that can take care of them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've been in that situation. I have a cross-border business, so you end up with two accountants, two lawyers, a financial advisor. So it's it's confusing, and you feel like you're juggling professionals sometime. Having that quarterback, in this case, is so helpful. But the other point, just as you're talking, I think back to this need to pull the information out of our clients, because it's very easy to make assumptions about people that we know well, right? We do this with our in our home lives all the time, and it's probably not healthy. Advisors, I think, can rightly, genuinely say they have deep relationships with their clients, that they understand their clients. But that doesn't make you a proxy for your clients. That was a term one of our clients used lately, and it keeps coming back to me, this that we have to remind ourselves that we're not a proxy for our clients' needs, wants, and desires, and that we can't assume what they are. So we need to be humble enough to ask the right questions and let the insights drive our strategy.
And that makes just so much sense to just understand how they want to be communicated with, what they want to be communicated about, and really understand what they're looking for when it comes to you as that professional.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as we kind of wrap up here towards the end, are there some key tactical initiatives that advisors should start doing today to really just at least change the mindset and start integrating that voice of the client?
It starts with a self audit, if you will, of what information do you have today on your clients? What can you legitimately say? We've actually got a resource on this. I'm happy to share just a little checklist to say, do we is there are there gaps in our understanding of our clients' needs and expectations right now? That will likely lead most to say we need to gather input in some way. So that would certainly, and that's our world. So it's what we live and breathe every day. Certainly something that we would see as a next step. And then think about just some some simple outcomes from that. If I've gathered input, how do I integrate that into the next conversation that I have with each client so that we're going deeper, we're having better conversations? And how do I ensure that my communications plan, whatever that next article I send out or next social media post that I post, is relevant based on the needs that they've expressed? But it starts with that self-assessment, I'd say.
I love that. It makes perfect sense. And just to look back at, hey, what am I doing? What should I be doing? And does that align with what my clients need?
Yeah.
And ultimately, you have no idea unless you find out what your clients need. That's almost like starting from scratch. Just say, hey, this is my communication strategy, but what is the basis of that? What is
Yeah.
the motivation behind your communication strategy? Is it saying what you want to say? Or is it connecting with your clients and your prospects on a more personal level to get that relationship started?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's not about what you want to say, it's about what they need to hear. And I think if we can get that right, we're onto something.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today. Is there any final point for an advisor to just to say, hey, you know what? This is what I should do today. Is anything else you want to add in here before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it. I would just say that if it was today, I would just think about the three questions that you could ask clients that would provide this kind of insight, at least as a first step, and then you can figure out the how. But if you could have three pieces of information from your client to drive a deeper conversation or a better communications plan, what would those questions be? We're happy to help, but this is something you can do on your own as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show. A lot of great information here. We're definitely going to have you back on and do this again.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Really great actionable insights, Julie and Brad. Thanks so much. Julie Littlechild of Absolute Engagement and Brad Swineheart of White Glove and the host of this podcast, Be Advised, Leading with Value. Subscribe for alerts to new episodes, share with colleagues, and offer your comments right on this page.
This podcast is brought to you by White Glove's Podcast Connect program, a done-for-you, fully integrated podcasting system that will help you keep in touch with all of your leads.
Thank you for listening to Be Advised, Leading with Value with Brad Swineheart. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of White Glove. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.